Welcome to the Valley College Connection, where John Kawai and Scott Wigan, two Valley professors, engage in a conversation about success with educators and students. Each week, they'll sit down with a different guest to find out ways each of us have had to plan, persevere, and overcome to where we are now. The show will also highlight resources and services that are working to make a difference at Valley College.
Today, we are lucky to have Cal Sustin, Professor of Cinema and Media Arts, joining the podcast. Chad, could you start us off with a little history? Feel free to go back as far as you like.
Oh boy. Okay, let's see. Well, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley and always just grew up around movies and always wanted to be a filmmaker and made movies as a kid. I had the Panasonic. Was it it was the Fisher-Price PXL 2000. And if you look it up, they still actually sell them. The images are great for what it was. And I made films as a kid. And
what kind of films did you make?
Oh boy, just I'd get some friends together. My sister and some of her friends. We would write out a quick script. Mostly mysteries and adventure movies, having no idea what we're doing, editing in camera because we didn't have any kind of devices to actually edit the films together. So we would shoot it in the order of the script, and there we would have a film.
And at what age were you at?
Oh man, probably let's see. This was mid 80s, so maybe around 10, 11.
And then what kind of film were you using?
Well, it wasn't film. My parents had the Super 8, but by the time I got around to being able to use devices, it was video, but it was crude video. Like I said, it was the Fisher-Price video camera, which recorded on these high bias audio cassettes. And you had a little black and white monitor that you can play back to. And it looked great for what it was. So that's how we would shoot our movies. But we were serious about it and we had a lot of fun. So that's how it started, I think.
And then at what point did you start thinking about this seriously in terms of your career? I mean, what did your parents think about this when you were doing this as a kid?
Oh, wow. Well, I think my mother just wanted me to be happy, do something that interests me. There was a point in school where I wasn't quite sure. I knew I wanted to make movies, but I also loved design. And I will tell you, middle school, even into high school, I would have sworn that I was going to become an architect. I wanted to design buildings. I wanted to design houses. I wanted to be the next Frank Lloyd Wright. And then I spoke with a career counselor who showed me what I'd need to do in college. And that consisted of quite a bit of math. And I am an arts guy. What do you mean? Why can't I design houses without math? Why do I need math? This isn't going to work for me. So I went to community college and still kind of teetered between architecture and filmmaking, and just decided to go the filmmaking route.
So do you think you would have been able to do this if you didn't grow up in the VCR age? I mean, that made it so affordable at that point.
Oh, wow. I mean, and it's even more affordable now. You can take out your phone out of your pocket. You can shoot any scenes you want. And then on that same device, you can edit a film and then publish it to, some kind of outlet that exhibits your film. You've got everything right in your pocket. So I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, it's amazing. I know talking to, I have some friends that had graduated from USC Film School, and this was before digital cameras were so available. So they had to do their final project on film, and that's $100,000 to $200,000. So on top of their tuition, they were $250,000, $250,000 to $300,000 in debt.
Sure.
Just to get their degree, right? And then now when you look at it, it's almost free.
It's insane. You're absolutely right. When I was doing my undergrad, we were still doing film, and I was shooting 16 millimeter, and I had to raise money. This was before social media and crowdfunding, and I did my own crowdfunding. I wrote a letter and sent a physical paper letter out to a bunch of family members, friends, anyone I knew that I thought might want to invest in my future. And I stated it just like that. If you'd be so kind to help me and invest in my future. And I got some great donations, and I took that money and I bought the film I needed and rented the equipment I needed and did my thesis film. And it was expensive. And I'm just thinking back that if everything were as digital as it is now, what students can do now with that money, it's pretty insane.
So how much? Well, let's wind you back then. So you went to community college, and then which community college did you go to?
I went to Santa Barbara City College.
And then at what point did you make that decision to go media?
Wow. So it's funny you asked that. I was actually just thinking about this the other day, talking to somebody else. I remember there was a computer lab on campus, and there was this new thing called the internet. And people had websites, and you could go, or companies, your favorite band, you go to a website and read about them. And so they had this website that had a database of all kinds of roles on a film project. And that's when I knew this is what I wanted to do. But what do I want to do in film? I knew there were a lot of positions. So I read up on what a director does, what a producer does. I didn't grow up with family members in the industry. So I wasn't really exposed to film sets and didn't have that experience. So I had to do my own research. And then when I transferred, I decided to transfer to a university that specialized in cinema production. And that's really when that's when it all came together. I said, wow, I'm on the right course. This is exactly what I wanted.
So explain what is actually cinema production. Like, what does that entail?
It could entail quite a bit, depending on what your interest is. For me, I wanted to direct. I wanted to have what was going on up in my head and that vision to be shown up on the screen. And I had to learn all different aspects and try to figure out, okay, well, this is my composition. If I want to get my point across, this is where I put the camera. And then, well, what about the juxtaposition of my shots? Do I go with shot A and then shot B and then C? Or would it be more powerful if I went shot A, shot C, then shot B? What is that when a juxtaposition of shots? Oh, that's editing. So, it was community college where I kind of learned what those roles were. Santa Barbara at that time didn't really have a film program. I believe they do now. But so I took, a couple classes, appreciation of cinema, and learned all that and said, okay, this is what I want to do. I do want to work with actors. I do want to direct. And that's when I transferred to a university to specialize in that. And so when you say cinema production, I mean, that could mean whatever it means to you. For me, that was being on the set, directing actors, writing a script, and working with a cinematographer and a sound designer and the actors and the producers and being in the thick of it, getting it done, getting that script to screen.
So were you able to do that at Santa Barbara Community College?
Not when I was there. I was there in the mid-90s, and they didn't have a film program. In fact, I do remember that the cinema class that I took there was in the English department. And by the time I was ready to transfer, they had just started their film studies program. And so the same class that I took and loved, they were offering now as a film studies class. So I took it again. I didn't need it, but I took it again because it was in a different discipline. And but that's all they had was, just the aesthetics. They started building a program as I was ready. Well, frankly, it was Santa Barbara, and I was ready to stop partying so much and get serious about my studies. And I could have stayed, who knows, another year, another 2 years just taking film classes. But I was ready to transfer and get my BA.
And then at this point, where was your head at? Like, who were your influences?
Wow. So we can take it back a little bit. As a kid, it was Spielberg. Hands down. As a kid, I was a kid in the 80s, and E.T. completely changed my life. I remember being in the theater, watching it with my mother, and sobbing. Like, we had one tissue between us, trying to, split it. And I just remember feeling that emotion watching a movie. And so it was definitely Spielberg as a kid. As I got into college, community college, my early 20s, it was Scorsese. It was right. I think I hit college probably, a few years maybe after Goodfellas. And I remember being in college when Casino came out, and I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. That's it. And perhaps as part of my evolution, getting through film school and as I got older in college, it was the Coen brothers.
Mm-hmm. So after Santa Barbara Community College, where did you go?
I went to CSUN, Cal State Northridge. They had a cinema program that was production based. And there was another one, Long Beach, I was looking at, and it was a little too far. I'm from the Valley, and I didn't necessarily need to come back to the Valley. When I came back from Santa Barbara, I was living in the city anyway, but I wanted a cinema production, hands-on learning institution, as opposed to kind of a research institution that taught you more theoretical concepts. I wanted to get my hands dirty, and CSUN has, Hollywood Reporter, I think just a few years ago, ranked CSUN in the top 20 film schools in the country. So
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was pretty fortunate to be accepted as a transfer student, and majored in cinema production there. And it took me a couple of years to get through it. So I was the 6-year college guy, got through the 4 years and 6 years, but that's okay. We all go at our own pace, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, I think when you do something like cinema, you want the extra years. You want the extra years for the internship.
Mm-hmm.
You want the extra years for the networking.
This is true. Right. I spent some of my extra years in Isla Vista in Santa Barbara with partying. So,
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. The extra years should be spent. If I'm looking back on it and I'm trying to give someone advice, I would say, yes, you want the extra years for the internship. You want but I'd be a liar if I said
if you say that's what you're doing.
Because
usually my advice is, when I was I used to work at Digital Domain doing special effects, and when students come and ask me, and they go like, and I say, stay in school as long as you can, like until you get a job, because right. You can work for free as a student, but you can't work for free when you're not a student. So once you graduate right. and you go, I'd like to work here, if you don't know somebody, you're not working there.
Yeah, exactly. And the fortunate thing about people coming up now is there is a wonderful trend of away from the free work. So even internships are paid now.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. The unpaid internship concept is there's just something inherently wrong about having someone work for free, even though they're getting the experience, it's understood. And what is their work really? When you're entry level, but not even entry level, you're an intern, you're getting more out of the process than the company. Let's face it, the whole point is to teach. However, you are putting in hours for that company, and there is some value there. So it's good to see that the internships are paid. But yeah, you definitely, I did an internship when I was doing my undergrad. I actually was savvy enough to work the system and made sure that I got the units for it. And it was funny because it wasn't, if I'm being honest, it wasn't really an internship. I actually got my first full-time gig at a post-production house and then used that as an internship to get internship credits in doing my undergrad. But, yes, when I graduated, I was able to use the connections that I made to gain employment elsewhere. So that's how I got my foot in the door is networking, like you said, getting that gig while I'm in college. And then when I graduated, I was already set. I was working.
I even say this for engineers. I worked when I was at UCLA, and I graduated in 5 years instead of 4, but I worked for 3 of those years. So I could, when I graduated UCLA, because I had 3 years of working, I got the best job. So I could be there 5 years and get the best job, or be there 4 years with no experience and then have to work my way up. So I've never had a problem with people who spend a little time saying, get to know your industry before you graduate, meet your contacts before you graduate, and then know who's going to hire you before you graduate.
Absolutely.
So let me ask this. So when you did your internship your job at the post-production, I mean, that's a great place to start. Which post-production was this, and what were your responsibilities?
Well, it's funny that you said Digital Domain, because I remember that was a competitor of ours when I was at Complete Post. Mm-hmm. It was Sunset and Gower, right around the corner from Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. So, if you told Scott Ross, our CEO, he used to be in charge of Industrial Light and Magic, that we were post-production, he would lose his mind. Because he would say, we are not post-production, we are special effects. But, we lost money on special effects. You lose money on special effects. Yeah.
You can't make money on special effects because there's so many people who want to do the glitzy things, they'll do it at a loss. You make money on post-production.
Right.
So the profitable part of our company was post-production. But if you mentioned that we were a post-production house, my boss will lose his mind. But go ahead. So tell us about the post-production house. And what does the post-production house do?
Oh, sure. So let's rewind a little bit. I was interested in directing. I was in my undergrad at CSUN, and I was making films. And you always want to make films. I mean, I tell my students that all the time, just continue to create. Make films no matter what. It's so easy now. You don't need film. Just you have a camera in your pocket. Just make a film. So I was making films, and then I had and this is from networking, a friend. It was a family friend who actually wonderful man. He passed away just a few years back, but so wonderful. He used to produce the Jane Fonda workout videos, mm-hmm. and he did a lot of political campaigns, and not anything I was interested in doing, but hey, he's this one contact that I was able to find that's in the industry, and he got me an interview with Complete Post. Why? Because he was a client at this post house, Complete Post. So that was my in. And I interviewed there. Actually, I'm going to take us on a quick tangent, but I tell my students this also during my interview. You would think it would be, very formal, but I'm sitting in this office and with these two guys, and one of them lays it out for me. The 1994, 95 Academy Awards. He just looks at me, says, "What film should have won?" And I loved it because Oh, I know this answer. Oh, I do. And boom, I say Pulp Fiction. He looks at me, he nods, he shakes my hand, he looks at the other guy that I was interviewing with. He said, we want this guy. he said,
he's one of us.
He's one of, yeah, it was something like that. It made me feel really good for the rest of the interview. But, that I tell my students that all the time, because you just know your movie, know movies, take classes, know the history of cinema. You take a history of cinema class, you think that's not going to help you because, it's the history of cinema. What do I need to know? I'm not going to be a film critic. I want to be a cinematographer. You never know. You could be in an interview wanting to be the assistant camera for the cinematographer, and she may ask you, 2000, what should have won the best picture? And you should know what was up for best picture. So anyway, so where I think I lost track. Where were we?
So what's post-production and what were your responsibilities?
Right. So complete post. So I get this job at Complete Post and loving it. I mean, that's where I was partying and that's where I was eating at 2 a.m. at Roscoe's and then getting up the next morning and going to work right there at Complete Post. Wonderful time. And so what did I do? What did they do? Well, first, a post house, it's all post-production. So when you shoot, at the time you'd shoot on film, the film would go to a laboratory like Photochem to be developed, and then it would be sent to us to be transferred from film to video. And then you do the editing nonlinear from the tapes that you transfer it to. Well, now it's all digital, but you still need a post house. You need a post house for visual effects. You need a post house for color correction. You need a post house for sound, for post sound editing, offline and online. So a post house finishes the movie. They put all the finishing touches, put it all together, get it ready for broadcast or get it ready for streaming, get it ready for the theaters. So what I did at the time, my entry level job was in the vault. That's it. That's like the PA for a post house. A PA being a production assistant on a film set, is a gopher. They get everything. They make sure somebody needs something, they go and get it. So that position at a post house is in the vault. And the vault is where you keep all of the materials, like all the assets, the film, the tape, the hard drives, you name it. So
if they ask you to get a clip, you're the wrangler. You go find it.
There you go. Yes. So if a color grading session is going on, 2 floors up, and they say, "Hey, we need a visual effect to drop in here," where is that visual effect? And you're in the vault. You can say, "Hey, they just dropped off the hard drive. I'm checking it into our system, and I'm going to run it up to you right now." So that's where I started, and I started there actually part-time. And that was when I was using it as an internship while I was in college. By the time I graduated, they brought me on full-time. And soon after that, just from working really hard, and I remember when this happened, I got promoted to film cleaner. And that really is not even a position anymore. But film would be strung up on this rack to be transferred to video. And sometimes it has to be, they have to go through the film several times and it gets dusty. So they need to clean it. So they would send it to me and I would put it in these big machines. One machine used this chemical that's illegal now called trichlor, which is short for something, trichlora something thing. I don't remember. All I remember is they told me, don't touch the chemicals. Okay, no problem. And it would submerge the film in the chemical and run it through and clean it. Mm-hmm. And so back what I was saying, I remember when this happened, this promotion, because I was one of the newest kids on the block, and I was working in the vault with a lot of other people, and I got promoted over them. And I remember saying to them, "Guys, what are we doing here? This is a stepping stone, right?" And there were a lot of people who kind of just didn't know where they were going yet. So I kind of, maybe I should use this time for any students out there listening. Go get it, right? You're not entitled to it, but if you want it, go get it. Show them that you're the person that is deserving, and it will happen for you. So
Yeah,
So I became film cleaner.
Yes, I have kids come to me all the time because they get pushed to me because people know that I worked in film also, and I give them the lowdown that you're probably going to get paid way less than you're worth. They're gonna work you really hard. They're not going to care about your health, and it's really as great as you think it is. Like what you get to do, like it actually is wonderful, right?
Oh,
but
my God, yes, it is.
But you have to go get it. Like they are willing to teach you, but if you are not willing to come in early, stay late, be consistent, come on the weekends to learn, there's no place for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. 100%. The only reason why I got any of the promotions I got, and I was promoted a couple times there, 3 times, I want to say, before I left, was because I would come in early, like you said, stay late on my own time. Now, should that be expected of people? Of course not. Of course not. No one should ever expect someone to work for free. That should never be expected. But let's face it, those who do look better than those who don't.
Yeah.
It's just the reality.
Yeah, I think so. The way someone explained it to me is, so we're doing high-end special effects, and we're wondering, why are we losing so much money on a $200 million budget movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger? And we're like, Arnold Schwarzenegger gets most of that money.
Yeah.
We're getting $20 million for all effects for True Lies. He said, think of our business as being a maid. Do you want to clean a bathroom or do you want to clean a bedroom? And you go like, well, I'd rather clean the bedroom. Like, okay, well, how much of a discount will you take to clean the bedroom? We have the job everyone wants to have. So we have to do that job at a discount in order to get that job. And it's just a question of how much of a discount will you take in order to be able to say, I worked on this movie.
Sure.
So, this whole thing of like, I'm going to go here and get rich. If you're irreplaceable, sure, but most of us aren't. So it's a low margin business, right? The moment someone's going to do it for a little bit cheaper than you, they're going to go with that person. So while it shouldn't be expected of us, it's kind of like how the economics of the business is. But I think like Jon Stewart did a big thing in getting people in cinema internships, because I think at one point someone had pointed out in his audience that he is biased, that all the people that are internships that you're giving opportunity are white. And he was upset, and he said, that's absolutely not true. And he went back and he looked at all of the interns that they had, and they're always all white. They're always all from rich families. And then he finally dawned on him, why are we not more diverse? Why do we only have rich white kids as interns? Is because they don't pay, and they're the only ones who can afford to be there for free.
Yeah, sure.
So then I think he was sort of one of the outspoken ones to say, I was really wrong. And they started paying. And I think that started this sort of movement now where people are starting to say, like, if you want to have a different voice at your company, you're going to have to pay, because diversity, diversity costs money. That's just what it is.
But it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's a great investment. You want a diverse population. You want a diverse vision. You in your company, you absolutely want to hear from a diverse population. So I think that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
So let me ask this. So when you're working on your student film, your undergraduate project, what were you doing? Like, what was the film, and what was your budget, and what kind of film were you using?
So I got to think back. That was during the digital takeover. So we're talking about 2001, and everything. Oh, okay. So everything I had worked on up to that point was 16 millimeter, as a matter of fact. So it wasn't my thesis that I did. I did my thesis on digital. I was actually one of the first to do a thesis film at CSUN digitally. Prior to that, everyone was doing 16. Prior to that, I did all my projects on 16 millimeter, but there was a new camera that was put out on the market around the time. It was the Canon XL1. And it shot on these mini DV tapes. I don't know if you remember those little tapes. And the camera was extraordinary because you could switch out the lenses. This wasn't a little handy cam. This was a legitimate camera. And in fact, Steven Soderbergh used it on the film Full Frontal around that time. So we were all about it, and we got a hold of a Canon XL1. So that was my thesis, was on digital. It was 20 minutes, which is ridiculous. Well, I think was ridiculous back then. It was already too long. But this day and age, I have students doing their thesis films in our advanced class, and I cap them at 5 minutes, and they want to go longer than that. Who's going to watch it? Where, people and our attention span these days forget about it. So in retrospect, it probably should have been shorter, but it was a 20-minute short film. It was a drama, and I shot it on the XL1. And at the time, I was also working at Complete Post. Now, by that time, I can't remember if I think I was cleaning film at that time. This was prior to being promoted to a telecine assist, which in telecine is the process whereby you string up the film and you scan it into digital. So I want to say this was around the time that I was cleaning film, but I was working with the colorists who were doing the telecine, the film to video transfer, because I would clean the film for them. I would bring it back. And then at some point, they were overloaded and they said, hey, can you string that film up for me on my machine? Sure. And they taught me how to do it. And then, of course, that's how I got the promotion to be a telecine assist. So around that time, I was shooting my thesis. Now, it wasn't on film, but you still need a colorist. You still need a colorist now who works hand in hand with the director of photography to make sure, everything looks right. You have the color right. You have the saturation levels right, the highlights, you have the contrast. So I was able to get my 20-minute thesis film done by a colorist, color graded, for free.
Wow.
We're talking about thousands. We had, the colorist who did I used several colorists on several projects, but if I'm not mistaken, the colorist that did my thesis film worked on some of the best shows at the time, 6 Feet Under. God, what else?
See, you had real pros.
Oh my God, it was amazing because I was their, basically their assistant.
Sure.
And they were happy to do it for me. And I got to sit next to them, and it was empowering because here I am, this, young 20-something-year-old who directed his thesis film for his undergrad, for college. And I'm sitting in the director's seat with a colorist, essentially my boss, right? Mm-hmm. at the post house. But now I'm on my own time and I'm sitting next to him, and now I'm the director. I'm the boss. I'm telling him how I want my film to look. It was unique. It was a unique situation, but it was empowering, and it felt right. I was part of the artistic process for my vision. Sure. So that was pretty neat.
Well, let me ask this. I went through your bio, and it's really amazing. Just give me two of your favorite positions. Like, what are your two favorite jobs that you've had?
Oh God. So is this not counting the one I'm doing now?
I'm saying. So we'll probably transition over to Valley College, but before we get there, tell me the two that stand out that you really enjoyed. Like, you were there and you thought, this is so cool. I love being here. I remember one day at work programming some special effects, and I called my mom. I called my wife and called her and said, I wrote a perfect page of programming. It's beautiful. There's no fat on this thing. This thing is perfect because it's pristine. This was a perfect day of working on a movie. And
That's awesome.
so just for you, what
Sure.
were sort of like 2 or 3 of the moments where you were working on something and you just thought, this is really cool. I had a dream and it's amazing that this happened.
So the first one that comes to mind was actually not the work I was doing, but more where I was working. At this time, I was, in my late 20s, and I was working for DreamWorks Live Action in their post-production department. And I just, every day I looked around and said, am I really working here? Is this really, this is my job? This is where I work? So I remember one morning, as a matter of fact, and DreamWorks, there were 2 campuses. There was the animation campus out in Burbank, but the live action was where Spielberg's office is now, maybe, I'm not sure. And it's, if you have ever done the Universal tour, it's on the Universal Studios lot, and it's behind those big Jurassic Park gates. So I would come to work, punch in my code, and those big Jurassic Park gates would creep open, and that's how I would walk into work. So I remember one morning, I get there early, I punch in the code, the gates open, I walk through, I'm looking around saying, seriously, I'm seriously working here. And I walk to the commissary because they have free breakfast every morning, and I start making a plate, little bagel, put some eggs on there, put a little breakfast together. And I was with, what was I doing? I was post-production coordinator at the time. And so this was early on when I first got there, and our PA for our department was taking me around and, showing me things. So this is the commissary. So I'm I'm there in the morning putting my breakfast together. And from the commissary, you can look out through the glass doors into the reception area, and then through the next set of glass doors to the front, where there's just like 2 or 3 parking spaces. The first one, obviously, for Mr. Spielberg himself. And as I'm standing there, this hybrid Toyota Highlander parks in that spot. And I remember thinking, ooh, what, somebody's parking in Spielberg's spot? That's interesting. It was Steven Spielberg. Just a little side note on him. I mean, right, this is right when hybrids started coming out. I think he had a Bentley too, but he drove around in a Toyota. I thought that was great. So gets out of his Highlander with his, the typical Spielberg baseball cap and the leather writing case, briefcase, and walks into through the doors into the reception. And I'm just sitting there, and again, late 20s, but still shell shocked, right? I mean, this is, like I said earlier, this is one of the reasons why I got into filmmaking in the first place. I mean, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so he walks in and he comes through the doors, and I'm just staring, and I was with some other people in a little circle, and we were talking, and he comes in, hello, good morning. Hey, how are you? Looks at me, looks everybody in the eye. Good morning. How are you? And then goes up to his office. And I thought, this is right. This is amazing. This is great. And I could see his office window from where my office was. I just, so that was one that comes to mind.
And you cannot ask for an autograph.
No, definitely not.
I know. My wife always, she'll see a celebrity. She'll go get an autograph. Like, I will not ask for an autograph. Like, just, it is taboo. So no matter who is around, like, I will not ask for it. Right. So, other people will be around me and they'll run and go get an autograph. Like, I still have it in me. Like, you do not ask for an autograph in those moments. What are your other ones?
It reminds me of the scene from Annie Hall where he says, "Let me get an autograph." What does he say? It's for my niece. Make it out to Doug. I just botched the line. I actually can't remember, but yes, you're not going to do that on the lot.
Yeah.
But
it is weird, right? It's like those ESPN commercials where you see those athletes just walking around the office, and you're just not supposed to, like, don't stare, don't look, pretend like it's but look who that is, right?
Right, of course. Oh, the one with Arnold Palmer when he's in the cafeteria mixing his iced tea and his lemonade, making the Arnold Palmer. Yeah.
And then, do you have any other like really great memories?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So that was one that sticks out just because of where I was. But to be honest, I was doing more admin work, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Another one that sticks out was really just a project that I was working on. And again, it was less artistic and more just about the filmmaking process and being a part of it. And I worked on a feature, and I was lucky enough, it was in post, but I got brought on right at the end of production. So I got to work for a year. I was employed for nearly a full year on one film. And the director did not fancy, office space on the lot. It was at Sony Pictures. So they accommodated and paid for a house for all of us to work out of in Malibu. So I got to go to work every day in the hills right by the ocean. It was near the Palisades. And the living room was where my office was with some fellow coworkers. Mm-hmm. And the director was in the guest house, and the producer was working in a bedroom. And it just it was a great experience. I was working in post. I was a post coordinator for this as well. And this was different because I was a post coordinator on a feature, not at the studio. So I got to mix it up with the filmmakers. I got to sit down with the editor and watch him edit and talk, in some downtime, just to, see what his process is. This was an Academy Award nominated editor that I was sitting next to, just watching his process and chatting with him.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how much you learn when you just sit with someone and they explain their process?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how they do things and why they do things. And I still, have memories of like sitting with, because people in film, they're really amazing at what they do. Because if you're not, you can't make a living at it.
Right. Absolutely. I'll always say, yes, you've got to be good at what you do. You also want to be a pleasant person to work with.
Yeah.
That's really how you get the next gig, is you were pleasant to work with. People don't, what was it? Is it Maya Angelou who said, people won't remember what you say. They'll just remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. Right. So people won't necessarily remember what it was you did on a production or unless it was something profound that you figured out the whatever, they're not going to remember. They're just going to remember how they felt around you. And if that was a positive experience, they're going to want that again. Yeah. So you be a pleasant person to work with, you're going to get another gig.
So let me ask this. How did you end up at Valley College?
Well, I think it was since Santa Barbara City College, when I was there as a student in my early 20s, and I saw my cinema professor talking about movies. I was already a film lover. I said, wow, I love this stuff. This guy's got the best job in the world, because I sit around with my friends talking about this stuff, but he gets paid to do it. That's really cool. I think one day maybe I'll do that on the side. And I always thought of it as something I was going to do on the side. And in fact, I did. I wound up getting a gig as an adjunct, teaching on the side, teaching in night classes while I was at Technicolor. And so that, which was my most recent gig before getting the full-time job, is I was producer for broadcast at Technicolor, and I would work a regular work day on, say, a Monday. I would leave there, shoot right over to Valley College and teach a 6:30 p.m. night class. And it was funny because I did that for a few semesters until I realized most of my thoughts about reflecting on my job and my day was the 3-4 hours I spent teaching that night, not the 8, 9, 10 hours I spent at Technicolor doing my job. And I realized this is what I want to do. And I got to say, as hard as it was getting a gig in the film industry, it was 10 times harder getting a full-time teaching job at Valley College.
Well, you got to wait for someone to die. I mean, there's so few of these cinema jobs, right? I mean, you're waiting for someone to die before something opens.
Well, it's
waiting
funny.
for someone to die and waiting for a recession to end, right?
Right. Yeah. My chair was the last person before me hired as a full-timer in our department. And let's see, I was brought on full-time in 2016. He was brought on full-time in 2001. So 15 years before they hired another full-timer in our discipline. It's they're hard to come by, and best job I've ever had. I love it.
So what classes do you teach?
I teach cinema and media arts. They're pretty much one and the same, and various courses within each discipline. Some production, some theory, criticism classes. So let's see, sound. I'll be teaching next spring. Let's see, advanced production, which is the thesis class for the students who have gone through our entire program. On the theory side, history of motion pictures, understanding motion pictures. I'm teaching a class right now. It's definitely one of my favorites to teach is master filmmakers. I had the good fortune of being able to write the class myself and bring it into our curriculum and be able to offer it. And so it's funny. It's like, it's kind of like, writing a script and then directing it and then seeing people watch your film. There's something really fulfilling about having written a class, pushing it through the arduous journey it takes through the curriculum process, getting it into the catalog, getting it onto the schedule, and then standing in front of the class and watching these students enjoy taking the class.
So who are the artists that you cover in the class?
Oh, and master filmmakers. So It's different. It's different most times. You only have a semester, right? I mean, this could be a 4-semester class. It could be even longer. So this time around, I've taken a postmodernist approach, which I have in the past too. I actually enjoy it. And we're focused on Quentin Tarantino, the Coen brothers, Martin Scorsese. We do P.T. Anderson, David Lynch. Let's see, Darren Aronofsky. We touch on.
So very accessible. I mean, very modern, very accessible, very pop culture.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's not just kind of an a la carte, hey, let's talk about Kurosawa and Hitchcock and, I don't know, whoever. There's more a theme. I have the postmodern theme.
Sure.
So it's the postmodern filmmakers. And I mean, I know I enjoy it. I hope my students are enjoying it. They seem to. This one's online because of the pandemic. We went online. Hopefully the next time we'll be face to face. But from the discussions that I read, and they seem to really be enjoying it.
So if a student is very serious about getting an internship and gets an AA, I feel that pretty confident that they can break into the business. Do you think a bachelor's is necessary?
It depends on who you are. I mean, it does. I say this to my students all the time. Do yourself a favor. Get something. Complete something. Be a completer, because that's who gets hired. I've been in positions where I'm looking at resumes for entry-level positions and saying, well, who do we hire? And on the one side, it's somebody who has all the qualifications we're really looking for to handle this job, whatever the job is. And on the other side, same qualifications. However, they have a degree or even a certificate. We offer certificates at community college that requires no general ed at all. And in our department, we have a ton of certificates. What does a certificate tell me as a potential employer? It doesn't just tell me, oh, look, a certificate in, directing. Well, we're hiring entry level for the vault, say at this post-production facility. We don't need a director. No. I look at this, I say, certificate in directing. I look at the certificate part. I say, that's someone who completed something. That's not easy to do. That's someone who took classes, passed their classes. Within each class, they passed final exams, right? And did projects. They completed all of this that culminated in a completion certificate. Well, what does that tell me? That tells me I give them a task, they're going to complete it. In fact, I won't have to look over their shoulder and make sure they complete it. They obviously can do it on their own. They did it. So to answer your question, it's hard. It depends on who you are. Yeah. But at the very least, get a certificate. Yeah, that will put you above and beyond other people who don't have one.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is if you want to work for one of the big companies, you're probably going to have to get a bachelor's because it seems as if they're doing a culling now. That even though you have experience, if you don't have a bachelor's, like Disney, they're starting to cull out all their non-bachelor's employees. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go to a Sony or Warner Brothers or a Disney, I think that bachelor's is starting to become just a culling point just because they get too many resumes.
Which is hard. And we can go back into the diversity conversation and about opportunities. And, if you're someone who cannot afford to be taking time off to take classes because you have to work to support a family, that's going to be harder for you to get that bachelor's. We can have that conversation for another podcast. But, the unfortunate reality is you're right. And another thing that some people don't think of, I know I didn't think of when I was, in my early 20s looking to transfer, is that you don't know where you're going to end up. Mm-hmm. You may say, hey, I want to do this, and this doesn't require a bachelor's, so I'm not going to get one. Well, guess what? On your journey to this, that comes up, and you may now want to do that, but that requires a bachelor's, right? Yeah. So you never know. So a bachelor's degree opens up so many more opportunities, and who knows? You may wind up doing this. You may wind up doing what you wanted to from the beginning, but statistically, I'd say probably not.
Yeah, I think if you're on this journey, be careful of debt.
Yeah, that's another one. That's another tough one. Although I am liking what I'm seeing lately about student debt and how the crisis is finally being addressed. That said, we've got a long way to go. And it's tricky. And
I will tell you, USC Film School has destroyed, countless lives.
Oh, God.
I mean, just the sheer cost of it.
And look, you know what? Nothing against USC, too. My wife's a Trojan. I'm all about USC. It's the number one film program in the world, hands down. However, I tell my students at Valley College this all the time, is we are producing filmmakers that are way more resourceful than USC because we don't have all of the things that the USC filmmakers have access to. So you have to be more resourceful. You will get gigs. You will know what to do in a pinch. You will know what to do with a budget. And, don't give up. Just because you can't go to a USC, don't give up. Because also, you're right. You leave USC, you're also leaving with a ton of debt.
I mean, because, you leave USC and you're, let's say, $250,000 in debt. That first job you're getting is $40,000 parking cars at Warner Brothers. I mean, it really is, right? I mean, because you have to work your way up from, parking cars and stuff like that. Right? Yeah. From the vault. Everyone starts from the vault, whether you have a master's or not, unless you're Spike Lee and you have a student film that has really wowed people. Mm-hmm. You're in the vault. You are parking cars. You're a security guard. You are directing traffic. You're making 30, 40 grand. And, that loan is there. So, I saw it firsthand of just how many lives, USC Film School destroyed because people didn't do the math that, just so you know, you're going to have to pay this off. That if you had gone the other direction of what you did, where you went into the vault and build a career from there, you can actually keep your salary.
Well, you said it when you said do the math. And I'm an arts guy. I don't do math, but I can do enough. I can do enough math to know that while I know that I want to be, if I'm when I was in my early 20s, I knew I wanted to be the next Scorsese, but I knew the math, and I said, I'm going to be prepared to not be, right? Yeah. And it's not just, I would want to instill in young filmmakers and students, that doesn't mean you're not worthy. That doesn't mean you're not good enough. Luck plays a big role. Knowing people plays a big role, but it's just life. It's just where your journey takes you. And that doesn't mean it can't be as fulfilling as what you originally planned out. It could be even more fulfilling. Right. Just be ready for it.
And they can, like without the film school, actually get there. And my friend owns an animation house. It's actually like 4 blocks from school. And he built it from scratch. He used to work at Disney. And he does some Comedy Central stuff. He does. He made his own feature, and he goes, you know what? I made a feature. It was, it won a lot of awards at these festivals. He couldn't get it on Netflix, but he got it in, local theaters. And he goes, you know what? A 30-second short that is punchy and funny will get my company more attention than my feature. Like, think of all the money I spent on that feature and that film. Yeah. And, they went to India to get this very famous comedian. He says, it's a serious role. We want you to come over here and do it. Like, the amount of money they spent. And he goes, if I have a really good YouTube, that gets me way more attention. So if you want to get your name out there, you can with a series of really great, punchy little short films, digital.
Sure.
People will
and there's
see
nothing
it.
stopping you. There's nothing stopping you. You got that phone in your pocket. Take it out and do something with it.
Yeah. Okay, so I could talk to you forever because
Likewise.
I just love people. I love talking about film. I love talking about all of this stuff. What's your best advice for a student wanting to break into the business? Maybe we've already hit on it.
If a student has been listening to this and they've been taking notes, I think that they're already part of the way there. So heed all of what you've heard. There are so many situations I've been in where I say, man, if only someone would have told me this, right? And perhaps somebody did, and I didn't want to listen. so listen to your professors. No, what I would say is educate yourself and put yourself out there and network. Educate yourself in general ed. I'm a firm believer in academics. I'm a firm believer in higher ed. I'm not going to say that it's for everybody, but I am going to say this, that you never know where you're going to be, where you're talking to a producer who could hire you and they bring something up about, I don't know, about Leonardo da Vinci. And you know about Leonardo da Vinci because you took that general ed art history class, right? So just, get educated, go take classes to get a well-rounded education. So you have that knowledge that will come through for you in practical purposes, like, in conversations with people, but will also come through in your stories. The more you read, the better stories you'll tell. And if I could say anything, and you will break in, I'll say that you will break in eventually. You got a network. We all know that. If I could say anything though, in the meantime, create. Don't stop creating.
Okay. Now my last question for you. Do you have a script still?
No, I have a few. Doesn't mean you get to read them.
No, I know. I think I'm the only one in Hollywood where people go, who doesn't have a script. Every time I talk to someone, they always go, do you have a script? They go, yep. They're like, what's it about? Secret.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. This was a great conversation, and I hope a lot of students get a lot out of it. I really did. So thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.